Hi meat and welcome. Today we're going to be doing some more Sims cooking. So this is another one. We don't really have to make it vegan, but it got added as an official recipe to the Sims base game, so I couldn't help but go ahead and follow through with making this. So we're making chips and salsa, as you saw, and chips and salsa 100%, like there's like, these are the basic ingredients I would say, but you also can still like make chips and salsa with a little bit less of these. Like maybe you don't need, I feel like all of them are truly essential, so never mind. I think each of them is, maybe the garlic would be the only one that would be like, is that as essential? I'm not sure. So my point to this being though is that essentially it's about getting the ingredients together and then their proportions and figuring out what works for you and what you like the best. So today what we're going to be doing, we're using a different blender today. I'm hoping it's all gonna fit. Worst case scenario, we're gonna do it in not like pieces, because what we'll do is we'll allow it to, any extra tomato chunks we add will be help add to the chunkiness of our salsa. But anyways, so the point to this being is that this is all a process for anyone who's making salsa, and you're just essentially making it for you and what makes sense. And again, this is going to be a reminder that like, or your call out, that if you want a food processor, it is like $20 to have a normal full-size one in your home. Definitely go ahead and get one. Part of the reason why I don't have one again is because this is the first blender I bought because I thought this is all I would need, and then I ended up needing the bigger blender that we have seen more often. And so because of that, I didn't want to buy another thing that cuts up food with a circular blade. So just really uncovering the layers about why I don't have a food processor. Instead, let's go ahead and get cooking. So this looks like three or four cloves of garlic. It truly was only two, and then I cut them up a little bit. So I essentially chunked things to then I hope it to be broken down further in the blender itself. And so we have essentially two cloves of garlic here. I'm trying to think, because again, you can see my cilantro, or maybe you can't, but it has some yellowness, so I actually took like all of the like good cilantro that I could and whatnot. So I would say this is probably about 1/3 of a cup. It might be closer to a half. We'll see. I love cilantro. And then this is about a tablespoon of lime juice. Also, just like, again, playing around with those flavors. This is a whole jalapeno. I feel like it was a smaller size jalapeno. It might be like between the medium to small size. And then I did deseed it, so there's no seeds here. And then I cut it up. I considered cutting it, like completely dicing it, and then still putting it in the blender again, because the bigger the chunks, the more you'll be able to feel the spice and stuff like that. So I'm trying to play around with that a little bit, because I'm a bit of a wuss. It's been a minute. Like, I need to be in the mood for spice, and I kind of am, but like, you know, sometimes it can just like, there's the like, oh, I'm in the mood for spice, and just down chip after chip with salsa, versus the like, ooh, I could go for like a little spicy snack, and then you stop. And I want this I'm planning on chowing down on this, essentially. Just to let you know my plans tonight. Anyways, so we have about 1 jalapeno there, and then we have 2 Roma tomatoes chunked. You can, again, same thing, so I'm hoping that this doesn't get too pasty because we're using a blender. Blenders are typically faster and will cut up and blend the food together into a puree a lot faster before it does like a chunky salsa. So hoping that'll work out. Again, this is what we will wait to add in a little bit later if our cup fills up pretty fast, but we'll see. And then we have our onion. This is about half of a yellow onion here, and just more leftover. So this is also really good if you have been like cooking and doing a whole bunch of stuff that uses all these ingredients, then, or you have different recipes that call for it. Always take a look at your fridge, see what you have available, and play around with just making sauces and like sides, and it's so fun. And then of course we have some sea salt here, and we'll add that more towards the end, and add it according to taste. We'll do about a teaspoon to start, or like a pinch or so to start. That way we get some of it incorporated, because we're definitely gonna need some salt. But let's go ahead and just get started with this. So at the very bottom, we're gonna have the things that we want to not get as pureed, because our blades will be going towards the top. So we're going to throw some tomatoes in here. This was precariously placed because I didn't realize how big, how big of these chunks we're gonna get. So I'm not gonna do all of it. I probably did about a tomato and a half, honestly. And then I'm going to put in our onions, just some of them. And we're gonna follow the same recipe because this is not big enough. So it turns out I should have used the bigger one. Again, just playing around with stuff. So I'm gonna do all of the jalapeno though. All of the cilantro. Am I overstuffing at this point? Maybe. I'm gonna be putting the garlic very much at the top because I really want these to get like diced up. I could have diced them myself, but essentially I just want to make sure that they get into smaller chunks. And then we're going to pour the lime juice on top. I always believe in putting the juice in after because that'll fill up all the space versus like feeling precarious about anything else. And so technically this is overfilled. Who cares? Living by our own rules. There's space in the blender, and that is the key thing actually about blenders, is that there is space so that air, because air is always incorporated when you are stirring something. Okay, so there's that. Doesn't move around much, so we're gonna go ahead, blend this up, and figure out how it's all gonna work out. So this is mainly greens, to be fair. Like, we still have a whole tomato and onion here. So this is very interesting. What we're going to do is crazy. Because I definitely was very confident that this would all fit in here, but I don't want to get too liquidy. So this is what I'm thinking. We put this in the bowl that we're going to be using. And we blend up these two separately to where it just gets a little bit chunky. And then we blend, and then we pour it in here. Mix it with the bowl. So let's see how that works. Also, you can just buy the salsa. We're not making the tortilla chips for that whole reason. So yeah, otherwise, wouldn't look like a bad salsa. I just used a very small thing, so there's no redness. This looks like a very good cilantro lime salsa, because that is mostly what it is. So now, let's go ahead. Let's layer them. Learn a little bit from our lesson. So we're gonna do half. When I say layer, I just mean sandwich the onions. Again, if you're using a food processor or just a bigger blender, you're not having these same problems right now. Okay. You thought this was just an easy recipe, so did I. I've made pico de gallo before, but I've never made salsa like this, like in a blender or food processor. So I really was just like, let me like do something different. Like pico de gallo, like some people would be like, that's not real salsa, especially like on The Sims. Like it kind of looks more like she's making pico de gallo at this point though, which use very much, pretty much mostly the same ingredients, and it's just that they're more rough chopped versus this whole blended food processor situation. Okay, we're just gonna go for it because I just think they both look terrible. Like the two colors are not the two colors that you would want. But technically red and white do make pink, so that makes sense. And then white and green will make a more yellowish color, so it still makes sense. But it's just very funny. I need a spatula to do this. I didn't see this happening. Okay, so we're just gonna mix, mix, mix. Okay, so our tomato ratio was definitely off. Things we learned, because it was just like, hey, I know for a fact this is still gonna taste really good for me, because it's, again, just for me. So this really works out. Let's go ahead. We'll do a little taste test. I'm using my finger to wipe off on the spatula. I know it's still just me, but like we have limits. I just thought you should know that. I can't describe why it's so watery. You can taste the cilantro, the lime, the tomato, despite still being the most in the recipe, which is like probably part of why we have this. You can't really taste it. You can somewhat taste the onion. Again, you think it would come through a little bit more. I feel like you get it more on the back taste. So maybe a little less onion would have helped us. So we're just gonna add sea salt because I think that's really the last thing I can do to enhance this. I'm gonna do probably about a teaspoon, maybe half a teaspoon. I've just learned how salt like just really transforms flavors, so it's like intense. Like how just adding salt to something, you're just like, oh, is this how this is supposed to taste? Like the spice trail makes a lot more sense when you think about just salt. Okay, so taste test again. Pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and leave it there. Well, actually, that's a lie. I'm gonna go ahead, come right back, and we're going to show the some chips. Talk to you soon. Merry meet again. So even with all of our faux pas, and I did not forget the sea salt, I just added that off camera and taste tested it off to the side. Because honestly, the salt you can keep adding as much as you want. Same thing with the lime juice. The main thing is just cutting up everything. So definitely would probably add more tomatoes because there definitely is not enough tomato flavor coming through. So this does come across as more of a verde style salsa, which honestly I love those too. So I'm still going to definitely enjoy this, but let me know maybe the way that you make your chips and salsa and how your portions work out. But I'm gonna go ahead, chow down on these, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.